all have games in our childhood that ultimately cement what kind of games that we'll enjoy for the rest of our lives. There's eventually a title that fully encapsulates our gaming taste. A sort of Freudian moment that defines our gaming DNA. But like, not Freudian in like the weird sex way? Unless... If I had to name that game for myself, the game would be The World Ends With You. Its entire existence to me now screams, this is what Maverick likes in a video game. And I want to explain why that is for that title by moving you through my gaming history, but also I want you to reflect. I want you to reflect on what games hit you in the same way that these games that I'm about to talk about hit me. So I want us to go through the 3 stages of gaming development, the ones that I've made, to see why it is that you like the games that you like. So come on, we're going on a journey. Get in the car. No, seriously, there's a car. I'm in a bubble, so. All right, you gonna get in the car, or am I just gonna look stupid? I cannot forget the first time that I played Sonic Adventures. All right, I forgot, but I can't forget raging as Amy against E210Y. Why do I remember that name? Why do I remember his name? I don't understand. Sonic Adventures weirdly, absolutely changed gaming for me for the rest of my life. It's a weird sentence, but we're gonna get into why. I remember absolutely loving the multi-charactered story, and I've loved stories that are told that way ever since. For those who don't know, the game is split into multiple perspectives. Each of these perspectives also comes with new gameplay formulas as well. Sonic was go real fast, while Knuckles was find real good, and Amy's was run real fast, bitch, oh my god, he's right behind you. I also absolutely loved the hub world. The fact that I can just run around as these characters in the open world and find secrets and stuff was insane to my child brain. It was the first game that was an open area, but confined enough to give it some personality. But why does this matter? Well, to me, this game acted as the beginning of my gaming taste. Obviously, it wasn't the first game I ever played, but I think it was the first game that made me realize that gaming was something special to me. So let's just call this game, and the next, the catalyst. A catalyst is a game that started your interest in video games, and one that you experienced at a young enough age that it impacted you without you initially realizing it. I think that a catalyst is what it sounds like, a defining moment that determines someone's gaming interests early on. So think back to one of the first games that you ever played. Not the first game you ever played, but the one that you can trace back through all other games. A connective tissue that, without it, you wouldn't enjoy what you enjoy. Altogether, Sonic Adventures did this. It really changed how I saw video games. Sonic Adventures 2 was similar as well. It had multiple perspectives, but divided into 2 with heroes and villains. It also had a darker anime tone as well. And I mean, this was before I even knew what anime was. I did know what Metamorphosis was, though.
Attack Metabee!
Just kidding. I did know what Beetleborgs was, though. I think that what this game and the first Sonic Adventures did for me was show that gaming was also a medium for driving forward a narrative rather than just for some random fun. Up until playing those, I really was only interested in gaming for playing with friends and family, not for analyzing or being engaged by a story. And I mean, now when I look back at those games, I don't particularly think they have amazing stories, but I still have respect for them, what they were trying to do. I think without me knowing it at the time, these games engaged me so much that they really began a lifelong interest in story and character. And if you've been watching me for a while, it's obvious that I really care about character and story almost above all else. Booty snookies! But the next game is what really started to define the aesthetic that I enjoyed as well. This game is one that refined my palette, so we'll just call it the gaming Metamorphosis. This game or games allows you to go from underdeveloped tastes to the more refined. And by refined, I don't necessarily mean good, because I mean, I've played and enjoyed games like Ark Rise Fantasia.
Strange. It's sunny, but it's raining.
The devil must be beating his wife.
Who? Beating his what?
So the games that define this phase for me
are Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2. Now, I initially got into Kingdom Hearts like how most people did. Disney, baby! The idea of traversing Disney worlds is a $1 million idea, and while that's all Kingdom Hearts essentially is now, just traveling Disney worlds and falling off cliffs. Back then, it drove me in even more with its JRPG sensibilities, before I even knew what a JRPG or RPG was. Now, it's not to say that Kingdom Hearts is your standard JRPG, but the qualities of a JRPG that it had particularly influenced me. This particularly hit with Kingdom Hearts 2. The story being over the top and complex, the characters having melodramatic, intense moments, just all of it, honestly. The Metamorphosis stage should be a game that took what you initially liked from your Catalyst phase, but then added on top of it in ways that really refined what you'd eventually enjoy. And for me, it was the advancement of the aesthetic and the RPG components.
For a metamorphosis to occur, it has to change what came before it. For you, this would be a game that took your Catalyst, but changed it in specific ways to where it started to appeal more towards you as you were growing older. So for me, it doesn't mean that every game that I like has to look like Kingdom Hearts, or play like Kingdom Hearts, or be like Kingdom Hearts. But it does mean for a game to be great for me, it has to be distinctive and bold and have a sense of fluidity to it. Also, it's gotta have big anime toes.
Earlier, with Sonic Adventures, I clearly enjoyed the multiple perspectives and the story focus, and Kingdom Hearts took that and ran with it. While it wasn't a multiple perspective story, it was an epic that followed and explored multiple characters throughout multiple worlds throughout its duology. Yes, I said duology. There wasn't another one after 2. What are you talking about? Look over there! To this day, Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 are some of my favorite games ever. And I think that this particularly has to do with how pivotal they were with shaping my tastes in the way that I just defined. So we've got the Sonic Adventure games, which introduced me to multiple perspectives in a character-centered narrative, and Kingdom Hearts, which drew me in with the idea of Disney exploration but kept me with its fat-ass anime toes and JRPG goodness. So now we finally get to the game that cemented the JRPG genre as my favorite.
The World Ends With You fucking blew my mind. The game is still one of the most unique games I've ever played, even to this day. You have the manga aesthetic of the dialogue and character art, but that's also fused with an insane multitasking combat system. We also have a story that focuses on character at its center, with a premise that is super intriguing in and of itself. While the story does have melodrama, I think that it nails it well enough. I mean, more so than any other title at Square Enix that Tetsuya Nomura has worked on. Am I right? That fucking hack bitch.
This leads us to the final stage of gaming development, and this stage is the synthesis. The synthesis stage is one in which all of your assorted interests within video games came together for one title. It's the game that you can point to that cemented that genre, or games in general, as important to you. The game that ultimately cemented your taste, but also proved that gaming was something special.
What's important is that all of the previous games that had started molding my taste really fused here. Obviously, it's a bit weird to say that The World Ends With You is like Sonic Adventures, because it's not. But I like to think that the DNA of a character-centered narrative is alive and well in both, albeit to different degrees. The World Ends With You's plot structure allows for weeks to be centered around different protagonists, with Neku being the anchor. So while learning about these other characters, Neku is developing and learning from them as well. While this isn't a traditional perspective-shifting title, it is one that does it in a non-standard way by having the story naturally shift between party members, with Neku staying consistent. It's a clever way of delving into both parties, and I still think it's one of my favorite video game stories because of this. The World Ends With You is the apex of my gaming journey, if we want to call it that. I fundamentally believe that it encapsulates everything that caught my eye about Kingdom Hearts and Sonic. And that's what I think this stage is. I don't think it has to be your favorite game, but it needs to be the game that, if you look back on it, took all of what influenced you before, put it into one package, and nearly perfected it. So much so that it made your tastes obvious. After playing The World Ends With You, it became clear what games interested me. Intricate character stories that have a focus on the aesthetic while having an individuality, and also having RPG or JRPG mechanics. I'm not saying that other games don't or can't interest me, and that goes for you as well. It just means that if you had to define the genre of games that you think is perfect, What game would convey that?
Ultimately, these 3 steps, catalyst, metamorphosis, and synthesis, could be how gaming taste develops. I mean, seems pretty probable, right? But during the creation of this, I kept thinking that something was missing. And then I got a haircut. But then I thought, am I being a little too vague with all of this? The Catalyst is supposed to be a game that hit you in a particular way when you were younger, right? But why? Like, why does it hit you in that way? Same is true with the Metamorphosis. When I say,
For a metamorphosis to occur, it has to change what came before it. For you, this would be a game that took your catalyst, but changed it in specific ways to where it started to appeal more towards you as you were growing older.
this is pretty vague, right? So then, what is the why? What's this component that we're missing? Well, I can only really speak to my why. I think my why, the why that brought me into gaming in general, really started with escapism, but then journey, and finally understanding. I started games ultimately as sort of an escapist fiction. That games like Sonic Adventure really gave me the escapist out that most people associate with books. But I was also looking for connection and understanding from others, and the multiple perspective story hit me in a particular way because of those reasons. But then when I was wanting to see more adult versions of this type of story, Kingdom Hearts 1's transition to 2 really started to show me that. But what was missing, and what I ultimately learned from The World Ends With You, is that gaming can also change how you see the world and change you as a person, because it really is art. That games can be deeply introspective, and that they can help you to learn things about yourself, but also to help your understanding of the world at large. That gaming, just as much as literature, is an art form, maybe even more so because of all of its compounding elements. And in a way, I made this YouTube channel because of all of that. Because I wanted understanding, but I wanted to give my why. To give my why on all of these disparate themes that are attached to the art that is gaming. And it's a vulnerable process, right? And I think that ultimately that's why sometimes I lean into the exaggerated and the absurd, because letting people in that way is kind of vulnerable. Focusing on the why of things is difficult, right? But I want to try to explain my why, and perhaps create a baseline for the why of the art that is gaming. But maybe I'm also just waxing philosophical gibberish, and it all just kind of means nothing. But then, why did I write this?